Hello everyone. In this lecture we'll be talking about arrays or lists in Python. So basically arrays is a awesome data type, data structure you can say, using which you can store multiple elements at once. So it can be defined as an ordered collection of data. Okay, so what happens so far we have looked at, variables that can store one value. So I can name a variable like age and I can store the age of one student. But this is not very useful for me. What if I have to store the ages of five students? Then I have to, declare five variables and name them one by one and list out their ages one by one. So that's kind of a hassle for me if I'm using programming to, store some values, right? So this is where lists help us, okay? So basically, instead of doing this, I can declare a list with square brackets to initialize them, and I can just note down all the five ages at once. Okay, so I'm noting down five ages basically. Okay, so lists help me store multiple information at once instead of just able to store one element. So you can think of list as something like this in the memory. Okay, so if I had a list of elements like 1 2 3 4 5 6, this is how it's stored in my memory. Okay, so one thing to note here is list always starts with the index 0. Okay, by convention you might think that the first index has to be 1, but in programming that's not how it works. Most of the time the first index will be 0. Okay, so you need to get used to this methodology sooner or later. Okay, so normally the last index would be n, but here it's n minus 1, which is 6 minus 1, 5. Okay, so this is how an array or list is stored in the memory. So you can access every element by just going to this index. So if I wanted to access this first age, I can just say print the name of my list followed by the index within square brackets. Okay, so if I ran this code, it should print me the first element, which is 18. Okay, now I can again do this repeatedly to access all the elements one by one. So instead of 0, I type 1 here, then I have to type 2. You get the point. But this is like we discussed in the for loop video, very inefficient, unnecessary, right? So instead, a better way of doing this would be typing a for loop. So I will say for I in range 5, print me the ages, the index at I. So first I will be 0, then it will go all the way up to 4. So all those numbers will be printed one by one. So we'll print 18, 20, 19, 21, 23 one by one. Okay, so if I run this, this is how it's going to look. Okay, that's pretty neat, right? So now instead of writing a hard coded 5, sometimes list, I might not know the length of the list. So what I can do is I can write one property of a list which basically gives me the length directly. So I just have to type len, short for length obviously, length of ages. Okay, so this basically works the same as writing 5. Okay, so if I decided later on to add something else, okay, then I don't have to go here and change 5 to a 6. This code will still work conveniently, right? You can see all the elements are being printed pretty well. Okay, now this is one way of iterating through elements in a list. Another way is which is also pretty cool is instead of writing for I in range something, Python lets you just say use basic English. So you can just say for age in ages print age. Okay, so this is at this point straightforward English, right? This code is just saying for age in ages list print whatever the age is. Okay, and this code works the same way, right? Okay, now let's go ahead with another example. So list can be of anything. List can need not be of just integers. I can store anything I want. So I can, name a list called fruits, which stores fruits. So I can store strings inside. I'll store apple and orange for now. Okay. Now, the thing about list is they are mutable. Okay. By that, what I mean is I can either add or remove elements uh, from my list. Okay, that's really cool, right? So if I want to go for grocery shopping and this is my list of fruits. Later I decide that I forgot to, add a melon. So I can go ahead and add this later. Okay, so I can say fruits dot, which lets me use, methods inside list. So I have a method called append, which means add. So I can add a string melon. Okay, so if I printed out my new fruits, the latest fruits list, it would be apple, orange, melon. Yes, so this is pretty cool, right? So later when I'm doing my shopping, let's say I have already purchased an apple, so I decide that I have to remove this. So I just have to say fruits dot remove that apple. Okay, I can just remove that apple and it would be gone now. Okay, so you can see that the apple has been removed now. Okay, there is another method you can do. So basically you can say fruits dot pop. Okay, now you need to remember that pop does not take um, any value. Okay, any parameter, I guess. So what pop does is whatever the last element in that list is, it is popped. So in our latest list, melon is the latest element. So if I ran this code, it would be popped. Okay, so melon would, as you can see, melon is gone. Okay, so these are the operations that can be performed on a list. So you can perform append, that is adding new element. Then we can go ahead and remove this element and we can pop the element. Okay, so what is the difference between an array and a list? Okay, so array in other coding languages are hard coded. Okay, you can only store a single data type inside. If you're writing an array of integers, you should stick to integers. You can't just write a string in the middle. But Python is not like that. You can, use any data type inside a list in Python. So you can use true, which is a boolean. You can use an integer. You can use a float. Okay, so if I just said print fruits, this would just give me all the elements in that list. Okay, so in other coding languages, this is not possible. Okay, so for this context, whenever we talk about array or list, we are talking about the same thing. Okay, so this is just the minor change. Okay, so for list, you need to remember that they are mutable. That means anytime I have declared a list, later in my code, I can add elements or remove elements from the list. So this is a very convenient data structure which allows me to store multiple information of multiple data types. Okay, so this is all about arrays or slash list, guys. Thank you for watching this video. See you in the next session.